Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where I believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that you don't have to wait for a greater life to feel grateful. Feeling grateful brings the greater life. This is the podcast today where we're jumping into gratitude. We are really going to try our best to harness learning to appreciate life when we are in it. Gratitude is one of my very favorite emotions because it is such a driver and it helps us come to a certain point. And, you know, I've really been thinking about my favorite holidays. And I love Christmas. Christmas is like, you know, the icing on the cake. But as we have been coming into fall and into this season before Thanksgiving, where we really get to focus on gratitude, I've really been pondering whether like this is the season that I love the most. I think gratitude helps us prepare our hearts for Christmas. And there is just something incredibly special to marinate in this season. And so my drive for the next few episodes is to really help us to drop into gratitude, to really help us to open our hearts, to open our minds, and to walk into this feeling and to make sure that this is a feeling that's part of our season. Something that I'm really looking forward to is next week, my gratitude meditation collection comes out. And the name of it is Cultivate a Heart That Looks for Gratitude, because that is something we can train ourselves to do more and more. And dropping into meditation, into heart coherence, and spending time in that feeling will help us train our brains to see it when we're not in meditation, right? So we're practicing. It's like meditation is the practice for our life, and then life is the actual playground, right? Where we get to experience the things that we spend time practicing. So make sure that next week you are watching for the Gratitude Meditation Collection. And I say watch for it, because we all want to drop into gratitude this season, right? And these meditations will wildly help you do so. But also because I have kind of decided that with all of the meditation collections that I'm releasing, the first week that they're out, they will be highly discounted, 50% off for the first week, which, you know, is such a driving force to just grab them while you can. So I'll be sharing the link for the gratitude collection next week on the podcast, and you'll also see it on my Instagram and Facebook, all the places, right? So watch for it and get ready to drop into gratitude and really start your season, right? The true holiday season begins with Thanksgiving and opening our heart to gratitude. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in the podcast next week. Today, we are going to be talking about a few things to really just help open our heart to gratitude, to kind of start out our journey together. And if it is your first time with us, welcome. Also, if it's your first time, know that there are previous seasons to this podcast where we are in season 3 right now, and we really focus on talking about how to keep our internal state in a way that allows us to live a beautiful life. Because living a beautiful life starts on the inside. And once we get the inside right, the outside falls into place. So that's what we really focus on in season 3. Season 1 and 2, I really jump into kind of my story, my history, the things that really helped shape me in my life. When I was a teenager, I was pregnant. The way that all of those events went for me, getting married, being in a really rocky relationship, also, you know, my daughter passing away. A lot of these really big things happened to me when I was a teenager. And I had a great family. And I especially had a dad who was really philosophical, right? Where he really jumped into the way that we think about the things that are happening really help shape and create our life. And so I share all of that in season 1 and season 2, and you're welcome to go back and listen if you want. And without further ado, let's jump right in to this episode. For a moment, I want you to try to remember any times that you have had a brush with being saved from something, or one of your children or family members was saved from something. There was an incident in my life where I swear that an angel, and I really believe that it was my dad, that he literally saved my son from going off like a 100-foot waterfall. I don't even know how. Maybe it was a 30-foot waterfall. I don't know. But whatever it was said imminent death to me. And we were at Gunlock Falls. My son was swept away by the slippery moss in the water. He had a life jacket on, and maybe he was something like 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old, something in there. And he was being swept away, and I was watching it. And the son of one of my friends was a senior in high school, and he was chasing after him. And I was screaming from across the stream on the other side. I was screaming, Jackson, get my son. You know, and it was just a really intense, heightened moment. All of a sudden, my son pops up out of the water. Like someone had grabbed him underneath his armpits is what it looked like. And lifts him up. And then all of a sudden, this boy Jackson puts his arm around him and grabs him. And they fall to the ground. Safety, right? We were so shook. All of us were. The kids, the adults, like the kids that had come with my friends, they slept in their mom's rooms that night. It wasn't that they were scared. I mean, maybe there was a scary feeling like, oh my gosh, we just almost lost Scotty. But it was more of a feeling of like, I don't know. It is just that, like, it does drop you into immediate gratitude and you grab onto them tighter. But also like this feeling of like, whoa, we are not alone. Like that was incredible. I am in complete awe. So I've had moments like that. I've had many moments, right, where I feel like we've been saved from something, or maybe not saved from death, but saved from a really bad accident. You know, I remember Tice at like 3 years old rolling down the hill. His chain came off on his bike and it starts to go out of control. The front tire starts to wiggle back and forth. And I see that he's coming upon a street where a car could just like pop out of, you know, and he's on this little bike. Oh, it was just like a mom moment of panic. And I pedal my back up next to him and I'm like, put your feet on the ground, push hard, push hard, push hard. And he did it. He pushed so hard and he saved a huge wreck and potentially even a bigger accident. And those are the moments, right? These huge moments in our life where we have this brush with something that would have been awful. That all of a sudden, it puts us into an extreme state of gratitude. There is such a force, such a feeling. Oh, so I'm sure that you're thinking back through yours and anything that has happened in your life. Maybe stories told, like family stories, right? Whatever it is that allows you to go like, yeah. And that perspective, that experience, all of a sudden helps you, like your heart grows like 10 million times like the Grinch, right? It grows so huge and we appreciate so much more the everyday, the mundane. I have 2 movies that I want to talk to you about today. And because of time travel, they are also dropped into so much gratitude because it gives them a perspective that they didn't otherwise have, right? The first one is called Our Town, and it's a movie. There's an old movie, but there's also a play about it. And it is really just this story. And I really love watching old movies because I think it drops you into a different pace of life. And then there's also little reminders, you know, of how life used to be, or maybe how life was for your grandparents, or things that you saw carried in them, right? Even as they were older. that came from those older days that somehow brings us into like nostalgia. So I love old movies for that reason. But Our Town is this story about this beautiful small town. And people didn't used to have so much access to the whole wide world like we have, which that in and of itself drops you into gratitude. And I guess that could go both ways too, because you can look back on those times and be like, wow, how much I would appreciate to just have life be a little more simple. But it also, I think, feels a little bit more mundane when it's kind of simple. And sometimes we get out of sorts when things are so mundane and we forget to just appreciate that life is happening right before our eyes in the mundane parts of life. And that is so gorgeous. And that is kind of what this drops us into. So there's this really plain and simple life. And then this woman dies during childbirth, and she doesn't actually fully die. It's kind of more of a near-death experience. She dies and she starts interacting with the spirits that have already gone on. And she has this deep belief that she can go back and relive some of these days. And so there's this part of the movie where she drops into, a normal morning that had happened 12 years previous. Just a normal morning. And her mom is going downstairs and getting breakfast ready, and her dad's coming in the door and talking about the events of the day, and it happens to be her birthday. And there's just all of this love in her heart for her mom and her dad and her brother, who also passed away at a young age. And she has this moment where she says, I can't look at everything hard enough. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute. I want to live. And when she says this in the movie, she's brought back to the scene of childbirth and her being sick, and she sort of just comes back to life, right? That's why it's more of a near-death experience. But it's just this part of the movie that helps us to be able to have perspective, that helps us to go, oh my word, it's the mundane that she misses. It's the love and the time that we share with each other and drinking each other in. And there's also a part of it that she's like, just look at each other a little longer. Just appreciate each other a little longer when she's in that moment, the 12 years previous, where she just wants so badly to drop in and appreciate more fully life while she's in it. And then the narrator of the movie says this line. He says, you've got to love life to have life. And we've got to have life to love life. Like, it's actually super beautiful and gorgeous, and it helps us to drop in and go, wow, we even have the average person, just the average person, has so much more than this woman was even referring to in the 1940s. So much more in the way of convenience, so much more in the way of access to knowledge and even like creating fun moments. I don't, that's kind of tricky because, I created a lot of fun moments with my grandmother just digging through her old buttons, And so it's not to say that bigger, better, faster is what helps us create more moments that are better. But we do have access to many, many things, many more things that we can even be grateful for. I remember, like in that movie, they were talking about like, oh, if she could just sell this one piece of furniture that this guy had come and randomly offered her $350 for, she could go with her husband to Paris. And she's always dreamed of doing that. People didn't have access to the world, to the earth, like we do now. And so there's that side of it that helps us to be grateful. But the bigger part is just being able to interact and to love our loved ones, to really just make it happen, right? So the other movie that I want to talk to you about is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. It's called About Time. And whenever I watch it, just so that you know, I watch it edited. There are a few things that are great to take out of that movie. But this movie drops me in like hardcore every time. The storyline is that the men in the family can travel. They can travel in time. And they can't just travel anywhere in time. They can only travel to their life, like their time that they've lived. They can go back to those moments and they can relive them. They can even affect the things that are happening in those moments by the choices that they make while they're in them. And so in the movie, he has all of these experiences where he goes back and he kind of rewrites some things, you know, he corrects some accidents. He corrects, like, his big drive was for love. Because immediately when his dad told him, I think it was when he turned 19, that he, you know, every man in the family, once they turn 19, they can travel. And he said, well, obviously, we do it for money. We can do this for money. And the dad cautions him, because it's interesting that all of us, we have that tendency to want to pave the way for our lives a little better with more money, right? That's a really normal and natural thing. The thing that's really important to pay attention to in that is, what is the feeling you think you're giving yourself by giving yourself more money? That's what you're really looking for. Is it ease? Is it freedom? Is it the ability to do whatever you want? That's the feeling that you really want to focus on. Okay, but that's like a whole nother podcast, right? Where we feel things and we bring things forward and that type of thing by feeling. That's a whole nother podcast. In the movie, the dad cautions him because the grandfather, because he was seeking for money, he had lots of hiccups. He had some things that happened in his life. And so he already kind of was cautioned about that. He said immediately when he turned 19, obviously for me, it would be for love. He loves love, and he just wanted to find a really good woman and live a good life with this woman that he loved, right? And so it's kind of fun to see how he goes about doing this. And he ends up procuring this relationship and starting a family and really having a really rich and beautiful life. And there comes a point in that life where his dad, this man that he reveres and loves so much, gets cancer. And he has a short amount of time to live. And when he learns of this news, he tells his son, hey, I can tell you a couple of things that are very powerful lessons that I have learned in the time travel, in this secret that we share. And he shared two things with him. He said the first one was to get on with living an ordinary life and to live it the very best that you can. And part two was to live every day again, almost exactly the same the first time, with all the tensions and worries that stop us from noticing how sweet the world can be, but the second time, noticing. As he realizes this wisdom from his dad, he goes back and he relives every day, and he rewrites the things that were bad in his day. Like when he's rushing into the court with his other lawyer friend, he actually pauses to look around at this gorgeous building and take it in, and then they keep running. When they're in a meeting that went totally horrible, right? On day 2, he makes light of the guy who is like a menace instead of absorbing this guy's negative energy. He makes even his simple interactions sweeter, like purchasing his lunch and the exchange that he has with the cashier. Or instead of being annoyed by the rock music that's blaring out of the headphones of the guy on the subway, he plays the air guitar to it. And what's really great is that by living the day the second time, he's teaching himself more fully to live life when he is experiencing it, instead of dropping into being annoyed and full of worry and full of tension. He's actually retraining himself. We talk about retraining our brain and retraining our heart and all of that stuff so much here on the podcast. And so naturally, I love this lesson that he learns. It's so poignant. At the end of the movie, he says, "In the end, I think I've learned the final lesson from my travels in time. And I've gone even one step farther than my dad did. The truth is, now I don't travel back at all, not even for the day. I just try to live every day as if I've deliberately come back to this one day to enjoy it as if it was the full, final day of my extraordinary life." And then the movie drops into the most beautiful scenes, the only way that movies can, and to the background of beautiful music, shows you normal scenes of a couple kissing and someone walking their dogs in the park, and just very normal things that we might count as mundane. Getting the kids out of bed and feeding them in the morning. Laundry, all kinds of things that we tend to overlook and see as tedious and see as wearing us down. And it's the thought that's wearing us down. If we can learn to shift it, we can learn to appreciate it. We can be, "Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful to realize you," right? Like the actress said in Our Town. We can start to fully drink it in. And so at my house, it's a Saturday morning, and I was rewatching the end of Our Town early in the morning and getting the quotes to About Time just right. And my heart started to, explode myself with, what would I do differently today if I was deliberately coming back to this one day to enjoy it and to live it as if it was the full final day of my extraordinary, ordinary life for this day. This day is the only day we have the opportunity to live this day, right? And so all this thought and this feeling is happening inside of me. And I have all three of my boys home right now, and it's November 2nd. And I went into the kitchen, and one of my boys particularly loves Christmas and always wants to do Christmas early. And so I turned the music up really loud, Christmas music, and I made some German pancakes and some eggs and invited them into this space, and we danced, and then we had this conversation where I was able to share with them. Maybe everything's not exactly like you would want it to be right now in your life. But all three of you are together right here, right now. You're all bachelors. And you only have a few more days of this to ever happen in your life, where you're all together, just the three of you. So drink it in, boys. And so no matter what you're doing right now, no matter what your life looks like, if today is the only opportunity that you have to live today, and you still need to do the things that you need to do, how can you add sweetness? How can you walk away from the things that you actually are bringing to the table with adding tension and worry because of your thought? What can you let go of? What can you step into? Whose eyes can you look into just a little bit deeper? Who can you hug just a little bit longer? In what way can you ask yourself to step into immediately appreciating your life as though you have had a brush with an accident or something awful? In what way can you bring yourself new insight into your mind to appreciate exactly what is happening right now in the mundane or the great and grandness of whatever it is that you are experiencing? I hope that you can see that through learning to truly appreciate life when we're in it, we change the very life that we're living. And in that, you have more power than you think you do. I hope that you love that episode. I hope it drops you into something so good and so expansive.
If there's someone in your life that you know would really appreciate it, share it with them. And also make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast so that you don't miss the upcoming welcoming of gratitude that we're going to be doing in our life. Also, I'm going to be speaking a lot about gratitude on Instagram up until Thanksgiving, really trying to help us bring this forward in our life. So make sure you're following me at my friend Misha on Instagram. And wow, I would also really love it if you share a picture or a little audio or something of, whatever it is that you are doing, whatever these thoughts ignite in your life, just share it with me. Share it with me on Instagram. Share it with me, at my email, hello@myfriendmisha.com if you want. Anywhere. I would love that. And I think it would be so fun for our community to see each other dropping in ways that we otherwise wouldn't have had we not taken that mindful moment, right? The mindset check. Also, I want to remind you that I have been working wildly on these meditation collections, and I'm so pumped to be able to offer them to you. I'm hoping to offer somewhere around one collection a month. In October, we released the Excitement, right? Feel Excitement Meditation Collection. In November, it will be Cultivating a Heart of Gratitude. And in December, it's about aligning your heart with your Heavenly Father, a meditation collection. All around that. So be watchful, look out for them. I'll also make sure that there is a link in the show notes so that you can find where you can find the meditation collections when they come out. And before we go, I want to close with the quote that we opened with. This is by Jim Quick, and he says, "You don't have to wait for a greater life to feel grateful. Feeling grateful brings the greater life." Put that on repeat, my friends. Put it on a t-shirt. Hang it on your fridge. Remind yourself that dropping in and feeling grateful is actually what brings the greater life. Until next time, my friend.